Oh. And 0. There we go. The countdown is done. I like to click buttons in the middle of stuff. Interesting concept here, working from different computers. We get buttons don't highlight for me when they've probably already like activated for VP. So we got maybe a couple extra seconds on that countdown today.
For sure.
And Chris, what today is? It's Wednesday, and it's 7 o'clock. And as always, or as often as we can, it is the South Carolina NORML Cannabis Conversation. And we're going to give it a minute or two here. We're going to let people start to join us here, gather into the room. We're going to click around some different buttons, and we're going to highlight the welcome banner. Boy. But yeah, we have a couple of people already joining in. Hey, Karen, thank you for joining us. While we're here waiting for people to kind of file in, I will start with our usual disclaimer that all of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness and are not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis, and we do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind. So behave out there, boys and girls.
Behave.
Behave. Also, I'm going to remind you, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, which I don't have a link here for, but search for South Carolina NORML, and like us on Facebook. Last but not least, I'm going to click on our Please Support Our Sponsors. Visit our senormal.org page and go to the sponsored page, which is under one of the drop downs at the top menu bar. With that in mind, I do have some hopefully good news coming up in the next couple of weeks. I think we're going to be adding a sponsor to our podcast.
Woohoo!
But looking for sponsors. So if you'd like to also be a sponsor of our podcast or our newsletter or organization as a whole, your organization would like to support our organization, your business, blah, blah, blah. Don't forget to reach out to us on the contact page on our website. All right, and next I'm going to click another button. VP, what you got for us tonight?
Well, first off, it's good to be back.
It's great to have you back.
I'm happy to be back. I feel like I'm a little bit more tan now because I was outside for so many days. Sounds like I was on some like journey or something, I guess. But I am back. I'm feeling good. I've been resting.
Some of the pictures I saw were it looked kind of like a partying on a cruise ship sort of thing.
Yeah,
or,
yeah, that's I'm sure that's what it felt like for the people who weren't working the event.
Weren't working.
For sure. No, but it's great to be back. I'm happy to be back. I've missed the SC NORML crew. So hey to everybody out there, roll call, check in. We see Kevin Bennett already in the chat. So say what's up. Say hey. It's good to see y'all. Glad to be back on the microphone. I love being on the microphone. So it just feels like I'm right back at home. And of course, Scott, how could I forget? How could I not just enjoy our countdown and our dancing countdown? Our 30-second countdown. We're always behind the scenes jamming. And so that was great to be able to do that today. Scott's got some moves. Scott's got moves.
Oh yeah.
But no, it's great.
We'll call them that. We'll call them that.
We'll call them moves. We'll call them moves. But today, really, what we're talking about really is just legalization and just the steps that a lot of states are taking across, and even some countries, just when it comes to legalization of cannabis. I have found it to be pretty remarkable. So the past couple of weeks, I've been very hard at work with my full-time job, but I was very when I was perusing the headlines, I was like, "Dang, there's a lot of conversation happening around legalization and even just some marijuana laws being reworked." And so, always like seeing what other states are doing or what other places are doing, especially for us as we are trying to move forward in that medical marijuana space, recreational, all of those things. I think it's really important for us to take a look at what people are doing. So, with that being said, let me just see if I can go ahead and pop up the first one here.
I'm going to drop it
Um,
here in the chat or I'll drop it in the comments for you.
Perfection. Okay, window, BIM. Okay, so we're just gonna take our time with these today. Real excited to jump into a few of these articles, just kind of perusing through and just commenting. As Scott said earlier, what did you say off camera that you are a opinionated spectator? Is
Opinionated spectator tonight.
that sounds awesome. But we'll go through some of these first on the agenda. Germany. Germany will move forward with marijuana legalization after receiving a very good feedback from the EU top official says. So I am always fascinated with um, what other countries are doing when it comes to legalization, especially when we had, what was the name of the basketball player Brittany Griner? Yeah, Griner. Is
I
that her last
believe
name?
that's her name. Something close.
I mean, the trouble that she got into in Russia, and just when it comes to legalization globally, that's another element too that I think sometimes we kind of forget to talk about just when we're talking about it, even within like the United States. But across the globe, this is still something it's not legal everywhere, and in other countries, there can be some major ramifications. So it's interesting to see which countries are moving forward. So all these articles, by the way, well, two of the three come from Marijuana Moment. We are not at all sponsored by Marijuana Moment at all, but I will tell you, if you want a good newsletter, if you haven't already, subscribe to those guys. Marijuana Moment. I mean, they pretty much aggregate um, marijuana news all across the United States and even beyond. So check them out. We're not sponsored by them by any means. This is just me letting you know where some really good information can be found. All right, so check this out. It says a top German official says that the nation's coalition government will move forward with plans to introduce a marijuana legalization bill, albeit with certain changes after receiving very good feedback from the European Union or the EU. Health Minister Karl Lauterbach said on Tuesday that a revised legalization proposal would be brought to the legislature in the next few weeks, according to a translation. Germany's federal cabinet approved an initial framework for a legalization measure late last year, but the government waited to get sign off from the EU to ensure that enacting the reform wouldn't put them in violation of their international obligations. Officials with the European Commission confirmed that the country could take the step, Lauterbach said. However, he added that some changes would be made to the government's initial plan. He didn't specify what those revisions would be, but said it will take into account European regulations and what should or should not be notified. This is pretty interesting right here. The coalition government will seek to comply with European legislation while maintaining their own objectives, the health minister said. Primary objectives will be reducing crime and to make cannabis use as safe as possible. I mean, isn't that just pretty much in a nutshell what what it is that we would like to see cannabis use in a safer way? And here are these guys over in Germany also thinking the same way, or just when we just think about the EU in general, them having these conversations. This is we see this across the board. The United States is having these conversations. Here we are, European Union having these conversations. Legalization is definitely upon us. The end of prohibition is definitely upon us. Now, how slowly that moves towards it or whatever it may be, like it just when I see conversations like this, to me it's pretty inevitable, right? It's pretty inevitable that at some point in time there's going to have to be on a federal level that there's legalization, because what kind of can you imagine the amount of Could you imagine the amount of stress or paperwork or all those kinds of things if you're going from one country to the other and one is legal, one is not? Like it's wild stuff. It's wild stuff. Real quick before I jump in, I see some folks. Tom hitting the smiley face. Appreciate you. And Josh, DJ Josh, what's up? Most dangerous part of marijuana is getting caught with it. Facts. Facts. Which is why it's great that we're seeing these conversations being had because there we go. BIM. Free THC. Exactly. Very good for us to see these conversations happening, even on an international conversation. That's effective. And Kevin Bennett, tourism loss if not legal. That's a good one.
Charleston, come for vacation, go home on probation.
Yeah. Oh
Woo!
Lord. Yeah, not what you want at all. Let's see here. Scrolling through. I remember seeing something earlier that I thought was pretty. Here we go. In terms of tax, marijuana would be subject to the country's sales tax, and the plan calls for an additional special consumption tax. Um, Taxing on marijuana is a fun topic because this right here is definitely you got a little double tax situation going on here, which when we talk about prices or things like that, especially on a retail level, where you got to take these taxes into account, right? Like it's pretty intense. Like legalization, we're very much supportive of that. As a business owner, I definitely think a lot about what kind of taxes we will have to pay once it becomes legalized, especially in South Carolina, because that right there is definitely going to always affect the consumer. So pretty interesting. However, it doesn't specify that number, instead arguing that it should be set at a rate that's competitive with the illicit market. This is the part that I'm like, once again, what did we say a few shows back, that the illicit market isn't going anywhere? I mean, there's another example of this. Man, I can't remember who it is or which state, but there's a state where a lawmaker is like wanting to put taxes on marijuana use, but it's not even legalized in their area yet, which harkens back to South Carolina's tax as well.
I was going to say, isn't that South Carolina?
Exactly. No, there's another state. There's another state. I'm trying to remember which one it
Oh,
was,
okay.
but it's true, right? Like here are these legalized markets, or even these markets that want to be legalized, that are still trying to compete with the illicit market, right? Still trying to compete with the illicit market, which I find to be pretty interesting for us, because now we have so much. Who would have thought that we would be in a space where marijuana is and I guess this is just the ramifications of like coming out of prohibition, or just part of the natural effects of coming out of prohibition, but there's this weird area of like, now we're trying to compete with the black market or the illicit market. And it's like, who would have ever who would have known that we would be having those kind of conversations, and considering that it's very interesting how this is a the illicit market holds such weight, for people who want to have a legalized market. Once again, making big bank over there. When it remember we saw the numbers. Scott, you had like a chart or something, and we saw the numbers of how much money was being made or estimated to be made within the illicit market. You know,
Yeah, the illicit market is estimated in South Carolina at $1.1 billion.
them.
I think we're like tied for third or something like that. Texas being ahead of us is a much larger state at 3.1 billion something.
Right.
And I'm saying billion with a B, just to be clear. Billion.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go. Make it clear for them, Scott. Make it clear for them. Absolutely. Well, this is, we see this is how, a legalized market tries to eradicate or erase an illicit market, but the illicit market has legs, right? It has roots, it has foundation. So I'm just ever so curious about how that what is the thing that's really going to shrink that illicit market. We talk about legalization, yes, and perhaps legalization across the globe would help or assist, but very, very, very curious about how that all shakes out. That even the EU is talking about how can we combat the illicit market. So that is Germany. Take a look at the rest of that article. Thought that was pretty cool that on the international front, here are some conversations about cannabis.
Well, you had me kind of curious when you started this article. I'm like, now hold it, Germany, but I'm thinking to myself, where and when did cannabis prohibition start? And I'm thinking to myself, it started in the United States. It started in the 1930s, maybe as early as the 20s at some of the state levels before we went federally. And so, of course, I asked Google, and Google says the 1300s, Suduin Kanai,
Take
the
your time.
emir
Yeah.
of Jonamia of Arabia, outlawed the use of cannabis across his jurisdiction. That's in the 1300s. And then it jumps to the 1700s in Madagascar, where the king that took throne banned cannabis throughout the Marina, Marina Kingdom. And then most of it really kicked off. That was 1787, and then it really kind of kicked off in the 1800s. Across, it looks like following Napoleon's invasion of Egypt, and concerned about the troops smoking hashish and drinking of cannabis-based beverages, they he banned the drug and established that it provided. Oh, okay, this is all done by Napoleon. So yeah, so the history is much longer than I thought,
Yeah.
and started way out of where I thought it was. So anyway, let me get that other link out there for everybody to share on our next story.
Nice, very dope. That what you were just talking about, that there's got to be a documentary out there somewhere about that. I might have to look that one up, especially Napoleon. Okay, Hawaii. Hawaii House lawmaker talks next steps for Senate passed marijuana legalization bill. Okay, this one is a little exciting. I have to admit. I don't know why. I think because of the fact that it's Hawaii, and when we talk a lot about tourism, like the tourism element, there's so many people that go to Hawaii, right? So many people that come to Charleston, and so there's this. I'm curious about a lot of things. Curious about what would that look like for Hawaii? Like what would the dispensaries look like? What would uh growing in Hawaii? Like I've seen people who are growing in Hawaii, and I'm kind of curious about like what would the product be like. Yeah, I think it would be pretty good. I don't know. I'm not a farmer by any means, but it just seems like there might be some pretty amazing things that could come out of Hawaii. But those are my first two thoughts about that. Um, before I do that though, Kevin Bennett said the markets will coincide. Now we're talking about this from what we were talking about just a couple of minutes ago. Before I get into the Hawaii article, I want to save this comment. I just want to put a little pin in this comment because I am going to mention about the Californian who got arrested at a traffic stop in Florence. I believe 100 pounds on him. And I'm going to put
Yes.
a pin in this comment. I'm going to come back to that because I think this has a lot to do with the markets will coincide. This comment right here. So going back, Kevin Bennett had to let you know I saw you. I saw you out there. Okay, let's read through. Hawaii House lawmakers.
Before we go,
Before we go, oh, that's right. How could I forget? It's been too long. It's been too long.
I got to break us up a little bit between articles, if
Go
nothing
for it.
else.
Go for it.
Before we go, I'm going to throw the question out there. As always, I'll leave it out there for a little bit for y'all to kind of answer, or throw in your thoughts or answers in the comment section, and then we'll come back with the answer as we probably wrap up a little bit later. And I have a second question lined up if we get to it. So tonight's question is in the knowledge category. 40 points if you're keeping score. I don't know why you would be, but okay. And the question tonight is a 4-part question, or not 4-part, but which of the following is not a strain of marijuana? Blue Dream, Green Crack, Skywalker OG, and Girl Scout. Let me do that again. Which of the following is not a strain of marijuana? Blue Dream, Green Crack, Skywalker OG, Girl Scout. Alrighty. Let me go ahead and turn that back off. We'll come back with the answer in a little bit, folks. If you have a thought on that, leave it in the comment section.
That's a good one, Scott. I like that. That's a good one. I love that. We got to do more strains. We got to do more strains.
There's thousands of them.
I know. That's like we got to do that one. All right, here we go. Hawaii. Thanks so much for that trivia question. I'm curious to see if the chat is going to jump in on it. I think I see a couple of people already. Okay, Hawaii House lawmakers says a marijuana legalization bill that passed the Senate last week represents an incredible compromise that contains the key provisions needed to advance in her chamber. At a virtual town hall event hosted by the Marijuana Policy Project, we know them, on Monday, Representative Janine Capella talked about next steps for SB 669, which cleared the Senate with amendments ahead of a crossover deadline. Capella, who sponsored a separate legalization measure that did not advance in the House by that deadline, described the Senate-passed bill as a really good starting point for us, especially because the legislation was amended to incorporate social equity and expungements language that were central on her own proposal. That's pretty cool, Hawaii. That is pretty cool. And by the way, this is it's medical, right? Oh no, it's marijuana legalization in general. Really happy to see the social equity and expungements language. That is very cool. It shows that we can all work together to come up with a bill that really meets the needs. I think of medical patients, but it also protects small cannabis farms and hopefully the people that will potentially be able to join into a robust legalization system. Capella also encouraged supporters to contact their state representatives with clear and concise evidence-based messages expressing their desire to see the bill move. That may prove critical given recent remarks by House Speaker Scott Psyche, who said that instead of moving the bill quickly, he intends to see the issue workshopped over the summer so that lawmakers can develop a comprehensive reform proposal that addresses outstanding questions, including the federal restrictions and the law enforcement concerns. I wonder what those law enforcement concerns are.
Their budgets will get cut.
Because Right.
Yeah, we have to meet certain quotas to get those drug war dollars from the federal government.
Right. My favorite one, we can't tell the difference between hemp and marijuana. That one is always a really good go-to right there. Always a good go-to. Capella, for her part, said that as legislators, we have a responsibility to enact systemic solutions that promote social justice. Any bill that's going to be about recreational cannabis use has to have social equity at its heart. I agree with that. Ending mass incarceration and establishing the biggest mass expungement program ever seen on our shores here in Hawaii is exactly the kind of systemic solutions that we should be pursuing. And I think that this bill takes a crack at that, and that's really fantastic. Really nice to hear a representative saying this, a lawmaker, like someone who is at the helm of representing so many citizens. It's very nice to hear this. It just always is.
And what's great to hear from my perspective is this is the bill that's actively moving past the Senate last week. You know, I mean, it's not kind of like we have in here. Oh, there's a couple of good bills out there.
Yeah.
but they're going to be sitting in committee and they probably will never be acknowledged by those committee chairs. So this is an
Right.
active bill. It's moving forward.
Right.
Their legislators are aware and well educated, it appears. Nice to hear.
Very nice to hear. I'm loving this. Truly. And even she says later on how there's things that they can do to make things better, which is a we're seeing that a lot. We're seeing reworking of marijuana bills. We're seeing that across the way. We're going to get into that a little bit too, but we're seeing that in states, and that's okay. Reworking is fine. We talk about that often, like when we talk about the medical marijuana bill. That if that's something that in South Carolina gets passed, it's definitely something that I would love to see reworked in the future. It's a step towards legalization, but there's plenty of things that I would love to see be a little bit different. So very, very interesting. Just seeing this, right? Like I think that's also very important too. That it's not the end all be all, right? Just because legalization occurs, we talk about this often. Responsibility doesn't end; it continues. Like you have to be responsible in terms of how these laws are made, what they're saying, who they benefit, who they don't benefit. There's still plenty of work to be done, and if you have legalization and you find that some parts aren't working the way you originally thought, it might need to be reworked. So it's good for us to look at it through that particular lens, for sure. And it says here, I think the rest of this is just more so talking about the amendments, the main components. Let's get into it. This is one of my favorite parts. What's everybody
Yeah.
doing?
But I do like this one paragraph up here in that Hawaii article.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, we're not going to win this by throwing stones, the
yeah,
lawmakers
yeah,
say. We're going to win this by really working together to create a program that is going to uplift Hawaii
yeah,
and change the narrative around cannabis use for generations to come.
yeah. Love that. That's futuristic thinking right there. Very futuristic thinking right there. Um, Here are the main components of SBSS 9 as amended. Here we go. Adults 21 and older would be allowed to purchase and possess up to 30 grams of cannabis and grow up to 6 plants, only 3 of which could be mature for personal use. Adults could also gift marijuana between each other. I feel like I haven't come across that in writing. And interesting that they put that in there. An
Mm.
independent Hawaii Cannabis Regulatory Authority would be established under the Department of Health to regulate the industry as well as the existing medical marijuana program. Okay, so this is pretty standard, right? Pretty standard. We see that there is like a whole nother kind of entity that is created, but this one says an independent um piece, which I'm curious. I'm curious as to why they maybe they all are independent, but it's going to be established underneath the Department of Health. Okay. The market would initially launch through a pilot program whereby existing medical cannabis dispensaries would be able to obtain a dual license to serve both patients and adult consumers. That's interesting. Marijuana products would be subject to a 10% tax, with revenue going to the state treasury. Cannabis businesses would also be able to deduct business expenses as part of the state income tax. Oh snap! Okay, a little love for the for the retail folks. Under a substitute amendment that was adopted, a prior ban on cannabis vaping products was removed from the bill. Nice. Language providing a pathway for expungements of certain prior marijuana convictions was added, much to the relief of activists who had criticized the omission of such provisions in the as introduced version. Yes, man. Yes. Civil penalties for unlicensed cannabis business activity were also added at the request of the state attorney general's office. Also, lawmakers adopted a requested change to add a track and trace requirement for marijuana products. Track and trace requirement. Um, I have seen this wording before. Scott, are you familiar with this track and trace
Uh,
requirement?
I haven't seen it as track and trace. It's more like seed to sale.
Uh huh. Oh, that's pretty.
Um, but yeah, I see that quite often in the systems where they want a tracking system on your grows.
Right, right,
And
right.
so, from the time that seed goes into the ground till the time it's being sold at retail, they want to have tracking abilities.
And that's also they do that with prescription drugs.
They
Uh,
do that but with prescription drugs, and I mean, there's some
right.
good reasons for that.
Yeah.
Because if somewhere down the line they find that batch has some mold or some
Right.
uh, pesticides or something like that that has happened in the process, and it may have not got caught on initial testing,
Yeah.
um, whether it was through improper storage or whatever reason it may be,
Yeah.
um, they can then track that batch and hopefully reach out and issue a warning to patients or to consumers, um, like they do with how many other, a consumer warning. We get them all the time.
Right.
Um, maybe depending on the extent of it, they find something that has actually contaminated in the process, like when they find some metal from the machine somehow got into a food product, they'll
Right.
recall the product, and
Right.
that kind of thing. So the tracking's not a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, y- you know, um, be quite honest with you, it kind of ties into one of the main reasons that I like the idea of legalization is for the regulation,
For sure.
tracking,
For sure.
certificates of content.
Authenticity. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that I know what I'm getting, because as I mentioned earlier, there's thousands of different strains. I had a great conversation with somebody this afternoon who talked about. I guess they were talking about treating for pain and having a regime of like CBD blended with some CBN. It wasn't CNN because that's a TV news station.
With some
But
CNN.
it was some CNN. Don't do it, people. Don't blend your CBD with CNN. Anyway, and taking like this compound or this tincture earlier in the day and maybe midday, where it can it doesn't bog you down. It's still uplifting, but it can still help with your pain. And then in the evenings when pain seems to manifest a bit more, you could like early evening when you're home from work, a micro dosage of a THC product, which may even match with some of the hemp available products and still legal products in South Carolina. And then the person I was speaking to is in Colorado, and then said, and then at the evening as someone's ready for bed, they may want to take a product that, what did they say, had I don't know exactly. I forget exactly his
Euphoric.
words. I like the way he phrased it, but an increased THC dosage with that blend.
Gotcha.
So it's and he made some great points about moving towards legalization. Really, in many ways, is rooted in education. And that's why that other paragraph caught me a moment ago. You don't get it by throwing stones. Um, but some of that's very interesting, and I think that's something that a lot of our legislators don't realize is because of this multitude of product and the variability in the product. There are, and the fact that most of the patients or most consumers don't really want to get knocked back into the couch and unable to function.
Right.
They want to treat their anxiety, they want to treat their pain, they want to treat whatever may ail them. But and our legislators like, well, all they want to do is get high. That's it. So nice to hear somebody talking about this from a legislative perspective. A legislator speaking of it, in the fact that it needs to include conviction relief and expungement. What I did want to talk about is said the prior ban on cannabis vaping, that there obviously was a ban written into it on cannabis vaping.
Right.
Let me ask your perspective on it, and our listeners as well. Kind of throw it out there in the comments what you think. Um, Differences between whole flower vaping and vaping of concentrates.
So in terms of like experience or quality or
Uh, Safety and health, I think, is kind of more what I would ask about.
mm, got you. Okay, it's a good conversation. So I think that when it comes to vaping, like if you got a dry herb vaporizer, that would be more of my pick before concentrates, but not because it's not necessarily because I think that the concentrate is not as safe. I think that there is a lot of I personally just like the taste a little bit better. That's just me. But I think that concentrates the same as what you're talking about with the what was it, like the track and trace and regulation and making sure everything is legit. I feel like concentrates are just the same way, making sure that you're getting like exactly what you what you're buying, like making sure that it's not having all these other additives, right? Like if you had your own press, I mean, you could press the rosin, you could press flour yourself and get concentrate. Like you
There you
can
go.
you can do
Hmm.
that yourself. So and that's coming straight from the plant, and that's something straight from the flower. So that's something that is, I don't think that it has like aside from all of the regular, I would say the regular things about like smoking in general, like it is something that you are, there's elements there, right? There's risk to that in general.
No,
Um
sorry for laughing. I just read Josh's comment back here that I'll share in
Let
just a
me see what
moment.
he's got on here. Smoke two joints before I smoke two. Okay, there we go.
He started
This
with
that's
indica all day and then more indica at night.
he's got the strategy we see. He's got the
I,
strategy. He's
I,
got the strategy.
I stammer because that's kind of the way I like to play.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, I think that the concentrates need the same kind of regulate oh my god, regulation. They need the same regulation. They need the same
While
regulation.
you're trying to say regulation, I'm going to say very good point, especially the point of if you have your own press, if you're producing it for your own grow or something like that.
Yeah,
My fear in some of the vaping products is what are they blended with.
absolutely.
And there's where my fear lies in some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of like, a whole flower kind of person.
Yeah.
And I would be one to maybe press my own or
Yeah.
create my own butters and things like that.
I think it's completely fair. It's completely fair. There's a lot of things out there that people are unsure about, right? Like for those of us who are constantly inundated with all the different products out there, we can there's some ways of at least I feel like from the products I've seen, it feels kind of not obvious, but sometimes, well, no, I would say if I'm looking at this stuff all day, it seems pretty obvious sometimes who's putting care into their product and who's not. And a lot of times, a lot of these places are just doing this kind of quick fix, trying to get crank out some products, which is why it's important for the people who are selling products, especially things that are going to be vaped. Like you got to talk to these people that are selling you this stuff. Like you have to talk to these people. You have to ask questions because no one else is holding anyone accountable about what questions to ask. Like if you're selling a product that is a vape, that is a Delta 8, Delta 9, whatever the heck, like you got to ask some questions. And people need to have answers for you. Like and not weirdo answers, like not answers that aren't real answers. Like I think that that's something that for someone who's going to sell something to you, that's due diligence that has to happen on our end. Like it has to happen that way. um and the hope is that we're able to decipher that, or just stay away from things that are very very suspect, like very very suspect, and not just try to put things out just for the sake of a dollar. Like it's not worth it. It's not worth people's health, to do that. So that's my take a lot with vapes, is that it's not like there's every single product out there is the worst, but there are definitely some things out there that's enough to make people scared, and rightfully so. But I think flour, like you said, Scott, I mean, it just gets to a point where, for your comfort level, it is very valuable to be able to say, I've got my own flour and I'd rather press it myself, have my own concentrate, dab with my own concentrate. Like, like I'd rather do that. It's fair. It's fair.
Yeah. So, and a well-educated consumer is important in the market as well. So, folks, kind of try and educate yourself on what it is you're
Yeah.
consuming. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself and still, you know, being safe. Take care of yourself
Yeah,
and be safe.
for sure. And if people can't answer your questions, don't get that product. Like, if they can't answer your questions, even if you're not sure what to ask, like the first thing, as always, is where's the COA? Let me, where's the COA? Where did you get your COA from? What lab did you get it from? Like, it's fair to ask these questions. It's fair to say, hey, what's the process for this? When you make this, what's the process? It
Yeah, that,
you
that,
absolutely
that
can ask those
certificate of
questions.
analysis is really important, especially as you're trying to drill down, especially if you're looking to, treat specific ailments. That drilling down
That's
with
right.
the certificate analysis to give you the accurate information that you need.
Yeah. If people can't give you the 411, the real 411 on the product, and God bless the salespeople out there. They gotta get their get bacon on their table as well. But if you're just trying to sell me a product and you don't have like the real to what the product is, I can tell you're just reading off of a brochure or whatever prompt that you got. I'm out. I'm not buying that product. It's not, you're going to have to come better. And that's the kind of standard we have to have as consumers. Like,
Yes.
if you can't come to me with the information I need, like, this is a wild, wild west out here. Like, this is a wild, wild west. This is there. No one wants to no one wants to even touch the products. On a federal level, is still trying to figure out. FDA is moving slow. Like, you have to ask those questions. Like, it's very important. It's not fair. Do not assume that everybody just has your best interest at heart. For sure. Anyway, that's my soapbox. But
Love it, love it.
that's my
Did we
soapbox.
have more to talk about on this Hawaii
Yeah,
article?
I'm just going to
Okay,
call these last two things, which I think is really cool, which
cool.
is to mitigate the risk of creating a monopolized industry. The bill, as revised, sets caps on the number of marijuana businesses that individual entities could own. I think that is great. There are also new limits on the size of licensed cultivation facilities. Something that I'm always concerned about is, where does small business land in the marijuana industry? Because there ain't a whole lot of conversation about small businesses. There's not a whole lot of conversations, and in a marketplace, small businesses are just as valuable as the big boys. And I don't think that there's enough conversation around that.
And I hate to say it, but I mean, I used to think small business meant like mom and pop when you were talking to the government. Small business to the government means a business less than 500,000 employees.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's true. It's true. But that's a good point too, Scott. Because then, even whittling it down even more, like,
Yeah.
two mom and pop shops. Like, why can't mom and pop shops be a part of the industry? It's also necessary. Like,
Oh,
also
absolutely. I
necessary.
mean, that's what I see
Yeah.
is craft growers, mom and pop growers.
There
That's
you go.
that's what I would like to see as the model for the future
Yeah.
in most cannabis. Being able to, I mean, now mind you, I'm old. I used to live out in the country. You could drive down the road, see a roadside stand next to some farmhouse, and pick up some fresh produce. Um, maybe some eggs, that kind of stuff. I'd love to be able to do that with a pot farm. Oh, look, there's a roadside stand.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, it's a good that's a good point. That's what that those are some of the things I get a little weary about with legalization sometimes, because it just doesn't seem like it puts into effect that. But I like this about at least attempting to not have the industry monopolized, because that also is going to have your quality suffer as well. Just saying. And then the last part, adults cannot consume marijuana any place where tobacco use is prohibited in the state. Also, condominiums could restrict cannabis smoking in the same way that they're able to do with tobacco. That was an important read for me, especially because the last time we were at the state house, there was a lady who was very, very vocal about how she went to DC, and she was like, I saw her in the elevator, and I told her like, oh, I'm here for a normal lobby day, and she's like, oh, so you want to legalize? I said yes, and then she didn't say anything else for the entire elevator ride. And then when it got off the elevator, she turned around and said to me, I don't want to smell marijuana everywhere. Like, I was in DC and I was in the hotel rooms, and all I could smell was marijuana and things of that nature. So I think of her when I read this last part about condominiums restricting cannabis smoking in the same way that they're able to do with tobacco. And Scott, I feel like I know what you're looking for
What am I
right
going to
now.
say? What am I
You're
going to say?
looking for that for
Uh,
the
my sploof.
contraption. Yes, there we go.
I
Yeah.
don't have it. I don't have one in front of me here. But you know I'm looking for it. And you know, I understand people's
Yeah.
thought on that. I don't like to smell the old stale beer when I walk into a restaurant,
Yeah.
or
Oh,
the frickin' urine behind the place when the drunks are pissing back there. Mind
oh.
you, sorry for painting such pretty pictures, but also as an ex-tobacco smoker, you know, I was that guy, and I don't want to say I was that ex-tobacco smoker, but when you quit smoking tobacco and then you go out at night and you go out for dinner, have a drink, something like that, in a place that allowed smoking. Now I don't think there's many of those left anymore.
No.
Um, but we would come home and have to basically change because our clothes smelled like tobacco
Yeah.
that I never realized for my 30 years of smoking or whatever how much I must have smelled like tobacco all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and being that cannabis is illegal, I try to be highly aware of how much I may smell of cannabis.
Right.
Um, or my home if a visitor or a service person is coming in or something like that. So although I don't use it as religiously as I should, I use the sploof pretty regularly, or I quite often will step out the back door, and my neighbors don't mind a little scent now and again, I don't think. Uh, but uh, but yeah. So there are ways to respect others in your household or your neighborhood or that kind of thing. And there's options around that as well. There might be an option where if you are going to be out in public and opt for some edible products that evening or something along the lines, or
Yeah.
a vape or something like that.
The
I see we have
respect.
quite a few comments up here. Do you want to kind of
Yeah,
address
we do.
them?
Let's go for it. Let's go for it. All right, let's see. Man, I gotta scroll up a little bit. Okay. All right, Andrew. This is a lot of Andrew. So here we go. Andrew, what's up? Delta 8 is a wonderful revolutionary product. Covert is a solid Delta 8 company. I don't think I've heard of Covert. Actually, let me go back to Delta 8 is a wonderful revolutionary product. Um, I would definitely say that I think Delta 8 is a fascinating product for sure. I think it also still needs a whole lot of it just needs a lot more um, consistently consistently correct companies. A little alliteration for you there. Just making sure that the Delta 8 that they say is present is there, and that it is Delta 8 and not, not popping hot, things of that nature. But that goes into this other comment. They have third party full panel testing. Always a fan of the full panel testings for sure. For sure. And then we got Josh said with THCA, when you say the war has been lost and the plant won, the plant continues to win. I'd have to agree with that. THCA is, I think, THCA is the wave. Naturally occurring. It is the caterpillar to the Delta 9's butterfly. Like, I mean, it just, yeah, I would say that THCA is definitely something that's having a lot of ears perk up, Josh. So, um, for sure. Before I forge ahead, Scott, any comments? No. Okay,
No,
great.
I
All right,
can't argue
Andrew.
THCA. I mean,
I want to give you a moment if you need it. Okay, Andrew Wyatt with the facts. And then Josh, yeah, you can also get D8 gummies that are just as potent. THCP is also really strong. Haven't really dabbled into the THCP a little bit. I will admit a little bit more weary of THCP. Well, I didn't say weary, but like I got to do more research on THCP to get a little bit more comfortable. But I will say that the D8 the D8 effect seems to be a little bit more concentrated. Who talked about this before? Cody. Cody and I have talked about this a little bit about how Delta 8 and I hope I'm saying it correctly, because it's an isomer, it's so concentrated. And it doesn't always have like the most well-rounded effect, I feel like. Sometimes it just has this concentrated effect kind of in the frontal lobe area. Whereas THCA, I feel like has a little bit more of that well-rounded, especially depending on the other cannabinoids that are present, can have much more of a well-rounded effect. And I guess Delta 8 could too if there were enough cannabinoids present. But that's just my take, my hot take on that. And then Andrew also said, "Awesome stream, guys." You're awesome, Andrew.
thank you very much. Always appreciate that.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Um,
Okay, cannabis
cool.
trivia answer. Let's go.
Let's hit it. And I gotta tell you, our people that answered earlier, they know their strains. I'll hit the question again real quick. Knowledge category, 40 pointer if you're keeping score. Which of the following is not a strain of marijuana? There was A, Blue Dream, B, Green Crack, C, Skywalker OG, and D, Girl Scout. And we had someone answer as D, and we had, let's see, go back and see who answered
And Girl
what.
Scout. Kevin
Kevin
Bennett
gave
and
us D,
Ina.
and Ines gave us Girl Scout. Nailed it. Nailed
Yep.
it. You guys got the answer correct. It is Girl Scout. Girl Scout is a cookies strain, so
Mm-hmm.
you will always hear it as Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah.
There are also other cookies strains. Um, Girl Scout being probably one of the better known ones. But you guys nailed it. You guys know your strains. Wouldn't know how you know that stuff, but
There you go.
we'll help.
Research.
What,
Research.
research,
Research.
education. That's always important. I'm going to help you keep that. I'm going to roll right past that one and into our next question just to throw it out there for you all.
Go
This
for it.
one, category politics. 50-point question. This is a big one. 50 points if you're keeping score. Which former U.S. president smoked marijuana to relieve his back pain? George Washington, Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, John F. Kennedy. One more time, which former U.S. president smoked marijuana to relieve his back pain? George Washington, Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, or JFK?
Ooh,
We'll come back for the answer a little later.
we'll get that answer pretty soon. I'm gonna fly past the last article. By the way, but I'm real hype about this
Oh, I
about
see
that
we are
question.
running late.
I'm trying to think of who it would be. I know who I want it to be. Um okay, cool. And real quick, Andrew said, "Yes, I love the head high." Listen, you are one of those that love that head high. I am one who does not like the head high, but love a good body euphoria like type deal. I'm more of a microdoser anyway, if you'd ask me. Okay, let me talk about this real quick, because that comment that Kevin Bennett put out earlier about, well, this one's the Florence one. Scott did just
Oh,
drop the no, but that's okay.
sorry.
I was going to do the Kentucky one, but we just don't have enough time. But the Kentucky one, you guys should definitely read regardless, because it is pretty cool what's going on once again in these other states. But I think Kentucky is definitely one to kind of check out and see. So read that article when you can. I'm just going to quickly touch on kind of the latest in marijuana news in South Carolina. Florence
Yes, I
County
think I dropped
deputies.
this one on our Facebook page the other day, if I'm correct. Let me
I
see
think
if it's
so. I
out
think
there.
so too.
Yep. So
And the most recent of this is that this guy, um, his bond was denied. Yeah. So yes, Florence County, right? Florence County, 100 pounds of marijuana during the traffic stop. I just have to say, like, these, always the pictures of like when they find stuff is just always just so strange to me. But 100 pounds of marijuana from, of course, this is on 95. So let's be, let's get clear. Usually, if it's in Florence County, it's definitely in that 95. That's a pretty infamous area. But let's fly through this. A traffic stop in Florence County led to the discovery of over 100 pounds of marijuana. Florence County deputies initiated a traffic stop on Monday for a moving violation along I-95 near the 164-mile marker. During the stop, deputies said there was probable cause to search the car. I wonder what the probable cause was. Because, as you recall, there is a bill. What's the dude's name? Dion Tedder, Representative Dion Tedder, who's working on that the
is
scent,
that the smell bill?
right? The smell bill. So I wonder what the probable cause was. Deputies arrested 34-year-old. I'm not going to say this person's name correctly. I am so sorry. But I'm going to say of Covina, California. So Buddy was on his way from California. He's charged with trafficking marijuana. And come on, y'all know South Carolina. You already know what time it is, right? If he's convicted, carries a maximum sentence of 25 years in prison and a $25,000 fine. And this one is a little outdated because it says he awaits his bond hearing. He was denied bond. So this is kind of what earlier when Kevin Bennett was saying that the markets will coincide, like the illicit market versus the legalized market. I feel like this is that, right? How much of this these pounds are we going to say that we can't say, this is all speculation right here, right? But can we say that all 100 pounds was going to an illegal market? We don't we don't know that. We don't know that. What if some of this was actually going to a dispensary or whatever it may be. There's that interstate commerce that clearly is not like a thing. So who says where this was going to? Was all 100 pounds going to the illicit market? There's just so much of this.
Well, and has it been tested yet? Is it actually marijuana? Is it CBD?
That was going to be the next. That was going to be my next thing, Scott. That was going to be my next thing. Yes, you have said well. That is exactly what my next thing was going to be. What who says that this was all marijuana? Like, how do they know that? Because how do we know that this is marijuana? What if it's THCA? What if it's below the weight limit? Like, how is it that they know it's marijuana? It's amazing how they know immediately if something is marijuana, and yet if someone says something is hemp, it takes forever and a day to test it to see if it's really hemp. But here they have 100 pounds of marijuana that they immediately was like, I got 100 pounds of marijuana here. We know it's marijuana. Well, how do you know? I mean, when someone says something is hemp, it takes forever to get it tested. And you can't, certainly you're not utilizing that outdated means of testing.
100 pounds of suspected hemp, no bond in South Carolina. But Alex Murdaugh, he got bond.
Oh, Scott, yes. Take him to church with that one, my friend.
It may have been a $7 million bond, but Alex Murdaugh got bond. What the fuck?
And he was guilty. Guilty.
He was definitely a criminal.
He was 100% like a career criminal. Oh, my God. Yeah, man. That is, I just, once again, that is that fluidity, I feel like, of these two, the markets colliding, testing, all of this. And of course in South Carolina, they pride themselves on feeling like, hey, we don't play, but this is, how do we know this? How do we know that this is marijuana? How do we know this? We don't. We don't know this. And so it's just, once again, we have to pay attention to these headlines when they come out, right? We have to pay attention to how they talk about marijuana. How easily it just seems like, oh, it's just cut and dry. Like, this is 95. We know how this goes. Well, is it? I mean, the world is changing. Laws are changing. The demand of product is changing. There's more and more THCA flower in dispensaries that, come on, let's keep it real. Like, there's some flower that would be legal in South Carolina that's being sold in a Colorado dispensary. So we have to acknowledge that kind of stuff. So, 100 pounds of marijuana. Well, all 100 pounds was marijuana? We don't know. So just wanted to throw that one out there. We are at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, we're time to kind of wrap it up, man.
Yeah, man. Let's get that.
Let's hit our last comments here.
All right, let's see. What am I where am I starting at? Ina's like, damn. Yeah, exactly. That's what we're saying. Josh. Yeah. Oh, Josh, we know what you're talking about. we know what you're talking about. But the pie gets 10 years in SC. Right. Some people can just go to their local dispensary. I think you're talking about earlier, Andrew. Right. Kevin Bennett says free Luke. That's not that man's name.
But okay.
Get Representative Clyburn.
We know who you mean
about this. Yeah, exactly. Get Representative Clyburn to speak up about this. Yeah, that's a good one, Ina. That's a good one for sure.
Love to get him interviewed on our program.
Yeah, that would be great. They want to keep people in prison instead of sending them to school to learn how to sell or grow legally, right? I mean, come on, like set it up, man. They gotta set, not you, Andrew, but I mean, like the folks set it up in a good way. Like, get people lean into it. That's true. SLED destroyed a legal hemp farm. Exactly. Destroyed a legal hemp farm after the farmers but
the taxpayers are going to have to pay for it, and those poor farmers, have had to suffer through that since the raid. And what was that? 2019, I think they raided that.
I think so.
And they're dragging this out forever. Again, if you look at our Facebook page, there's a video on SLED and Mark Keel obstructing the process and basically subverting the process. Law enforcement acting unlawfully. Oh my, really? It's not possible.
Yeah, man. That's annoying. That's very annoying. Like, what? I mean, that's very annoying. Very annoying. And just to, we've talked about this. You guys can watch it. I'm not going to even get into it. See, I almost got into it. Yes. Yeah. The short answer is that it's annoying. What's your answer for President's Trivia?
All right. You got me. I almost forgot. Let's see. Our answer. Well, let me give the question again. Which former U.S. president smoked marijuana to relieve his back pain? George Washington, Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, or JFK? Answer on the card is JFK. John F. Kennedy smoked marijuana to relieve his back pain.
I wanted it to be George Washington so bad.
He grew hemp. We know that. He grew the weed. So we'll give him creds at least for that.
We'll give him creds. Well, another great night. Glad to be back on the mic.
We're so thrilled to have you back. And folks, we're probably going to run over just a couple of minutes here because there are some things I want to kind of talk about before we wrap up. We have some exciting stuff coming up in April, which is just like 2 weeks away. We have I see the look on your face. What do you mean 2 months away? She looks at a calendar.
I'm like,
2 weeks away.
Woo.
It's coming up fast, man.
Wow.
the entire month of April, we're planning on fundraising and trying to start getting out in the community again and interacting. So, with that said, there is going to be a Krispy Kreme digital dozen sale going on the entire month. Our goal is to sell 420 digital dozen. Excuse me. These are purchased online. You take a digital code to the store and you know, use that code to get your donuts. You can cash those in at any Krispy Kreme in the United States. So you don't have to live in Charleston. You don't even have to live necessarily near a Krispy Kreme. Just get that code and make it a make it a Krispy Kreme adventure and take a trek to the nearest Krispy Kreme to you.
Make sure the hot light is on, y'all.
I hear that. I hear that's the ticket. And make sure that hot light is on. So that's going on all month long, and that is nationwide. So that's a big one. We're hoping you all can participate no matter where you follow us from. Also, more locally here are I don't want to play favorites per se, but a favorite pub of ours, the Not Burger Pub in Somerville, South Carolina. Again, for the third year in a row, we'll be doing a month-long fundraiser at their establishment. I'm not sure of all the details yet, but like last year, if you bought the Munchie Burger, they donated $2. If you bought the liquid marijuana mixed drink, they donated $1. And if you bought like a Wicked Weed beer or something, they donated another $1. They have been very good to us, and we are planning 420 at the Not Burger Pub in Somerville. If you want to come hang out with South Carolina NORML and the gang, we are going to be there. I'm trying to think what else. We are going to be at the Bohemian Bull on Folly Road in Charleston on James Island. That will be 422. That's the following Saturday for their 420 market. And that's from like noon till 4. And we have in the background, we're kind of still working on it, but we should have another event on 422 nearby. So kind of keep your ears open for that one. But we got some stuff cooking for the new year. And again, we've got things like join us at Reggae Nights for some music and fun. Join us on the beach for a beach cleanup coming up mid-year. Got some things cooking, so that stuff is just down the road. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to ramble on, except for don't forget we can always use your support. So don't forget, if you're not a member, go ahead over to our website and join us. Don't forget to follow us on our social media on Facebook and YouTube. Don't forget, definitely subscribe to our YouTube and Twitter and Instagram as well. The last couple of things. Oh, we got Josh loving some donuts here.
Yes. Yes.
And Ina.
Yeah, sure. Oh, I gotta get back in the gym. Yeah, Ina's talking about, I reemerged on Instagram for a very short time and will retreat back into the shadows. Yeah, I've been having some fun out there, so I gotta get back in the gym. But that's a nice compliment. Thank you, Ina. Thank you.
Absolutely. Looking great. Well, and it's really showed in some of those photos from the event last week. So
oh yeah, I've been feeling good. That's why I got all these mosquito bites, Scott.
They're feeding again.
From
welcome to South Carolina.
Oh my God, they were like, we were out there at Riverfront Park. They were like, it was like a scene out of Jurassic Park. They were huge.
Oh wow!
Like what? No, is it a pterodactyl? I don't know. It's very strange.
Wow.
Anyway,
wrap it up for us, VP.
Well, I appreciate y'all so much for rocking with us once again. The Cannabis Conversations presented by SC NORML. We got Scott right here, Executive Director, and me, VP, Secretary of SC NORML. Really appreciate y'all. Big love for as Ina said, all love to our SC NORML family. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll be back again next week, next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Make sure you like, subscribe, all those things.
Out.
We out.